Is everything in order? It would appear so. It's good to see everyone here, so let's go ahead and get started. Yo, peoples, Kyushu92 here, and welcome back to yet another iteration of Solo Leveling. We had a lot of good... Well, actually, let me make sure this is my voice. Yeah, it's my voice. Sorry, just had to double check and make sure that it was my regular voice coming through here and not Ashbourne's yet. But we had a really good chapter last week where we were explaining the origins of, well, not necessarily the origins. Well, yeah, basically the origins of how Ashbourne became who he was, and how out of all of the rulers that were there to satisfy the entertainment of the absolute being, basically God, he was the only one who remained loyal when they all rebelled because they didn't want to fight for him anymore. So now, after he gains this power, he uses this new necromancy power to become stronger and make his way back to the absolute ruler. But we're kind of left on this cliffhanger in the last chapter, where the absolute ruler has already been killed and he's just now arriving. So now we get to see what happens. And we have the page of the absolute ruler on his throne, but he's impaled multiple times onto the throne, with Ashbourne saying,
"When I returned, everything was already over."
And then it just shows the absolute ruler impaled multiple times sitting on his throne. Chapter 163. And we get Ashbourne still continuing with narration.
The remaining fragments of brilliant light had killed the absolute being, and called themselves the new gods, thus assuming the position of the rulers, and used various tools containing the power of the absolute being to hunt down the sovereigns. As a result, the king of giants, Legia, was captured by the rulers, and the power balance between the two sides collapsed.
So, you mean to tell me that these beings proclaimed themselves rulers after killing the absolute being, and then use other tools to find the sovereigns and hunt them down? And Legia was one that was captured by these guys. Interesting. Ashbourne continues.
Then, the sovereigns realized the severity of the situation, and I used that moment to reach out to the sovereigns. They had no choice but to combine forces with me in order to combat our common enemy, the rulers. From then on, I continued the long-lasting battle, as neither a fragment of brilliant light nor an emissary of God, but as the Shadow Monarch. Time was on my side, the corpses and the souls that remained on the battlefield. And when I combined forces with the army of destruction, led by the king of berserk dragons, the monarchs as well as the rulers came to fear me. Two of the monarchs who feared me aimed for my back after combining forces.
And in these panels, it shows the Beast Monarch with his entire... It shows the Beast Monarch with his entire army as one that wanted to go for the Shadow Monarch. And then it shows what appears to be Baron as one who tried to go for him as well, because I recognize his helmet. But beforehand, when he said he was joining with the other monarchs, we see all the other monarchs here. We see Kairesha, we see the Beast Monarch, the Frost Monarch, Baron. The ones that we know of are the ones that have like a little bit of their body out of shadow a little bit here, with Ashbourne over on the side. But yeah, the Beast Monarch and I guess the Demon Monarch tried to go for him.
Two of the monarchs who feared me aimed for my back after combining forces. And due to that, my shadow army was nearly annihilated. Strength that was too powerful and brought me betrayal. Strength that was too powerful had brought me betrayal.
Sorry, a notification just popped up there, random. But it shows Ashbourne holding Baron just like by the face as he's preparing to kill him. It's showing blood coming out of his face and everything. And all this is in shadow. Ashbourne just literally holding him by, I guess, the neck or the face, one-handed as he's holding him up in the air.
While the king of the beasts, the beast monarch, ran away after abandoning his soldiers. The king of the demons, the monarch of white flames, Baron, had to pay the ultimate price. But then...
And then it shows the rulers bursting into the scene just as he's about to deal the final blow to Baron. And they all approach the Shadow Monarch as he turns away from Baron and faces them. No! He takes his cloak and covers Baron up. And I guess he's... What's he covering him for? Did he just... Are we good? Are we good? Everything seems to be working now. It kind of disconnected there for a second. So let me go back. So Ashbourne completely covers up Baron with his cape as the rulers all land around him, and then they surround him. And then all of a sudden, all of the rulers kneel. All of the rulers that have surrounded him just kneel in front of him, with one of them saying, "Please, it's time for you to forgive us. Oh, the greatest fragment of brilliant light." So he was the strongest! Yo! He was the greatest of all of them! Not just the most loyal of the absolute being, but he was also the greatest of them all. And one of the rulers just says, "Please, it's time for you to forgive us. Oh, the greatest fragment of brilliant light. There is no reason for us to fight any longer." And then Baron continues his narration.
Even though they possessed enough power to send me back to nothingness if they wanted to, they chose to pursue peace. Sorry about that.
All right, my voice is normal again. Sorry about that. I gotta read that again. Oh, wait. Let me go back. Got interrupted. Sorry, it threw me off. "Please, it's time for you to forgive us. Oh, the greatest fragment of brilliant light. There is no reason for us to fight any longer."
Even though they possessed enough power to send me back to nothingness if they wanted to, they chose to pursue peace. It was the least respect they could have shown me, or the time I was their ally, fighting on the front lines while leading the army of brilliant light.
And then Ashbourne says, not Baron, Ashbourne. I get them mixed up sometimes, but Ashbourne says,
"No reason, you say? Have you not harmed my liege with your swords and spears?"
"He was our master as well." And then Ashbourne's eyes light up as Ashbourne grabs the guy's face, and then he says,
That is precisely why your crimes are even more heinous.
You should understand better than anyone how we felt when we raised our banners of rebellion against our master. We simply wanted to end this war.
Pierce my heart with your spears. This is the end that you so desperately seek. You shall finally become the victors of this war.
Please, find it in your heart to forgive us.
Kill me now!
Please, quell your anger, O greatest fragment of brilliant light. And they all just, and then as this ruler puts his hand on his chest, like the scout, what is it? The scout regiment of Attack on Titan, where they put their hands on their chests. They all do that as he says, "Oh, greatest fragment of brilliant light," and they all do this. And all of the other soldiers that the rulers brought with them all do the exact same thing because they're all around Ashbourne right now. And Ashbourne continues, but he continues in the form of Layli Selner. I was overwhelmed. I could not come up with any kind of solution. And then he turns into Andre. So I decided to hide myself for the sake of revenge. Since I had trapped the Monarch of White Flames within me, I was planning on striking the forces of the Beast Monarch after letting my body recover. But while I was hiding, the monarchs who lost the majority of their power had been defeated by the rulers. And when I reappeared in front of the monarchs, who took their chances to escape the cracks between the dimensions. Who is this? What armor is this? The King of Dragons did not permit any kind of fighting, knowing that it was time for them to recover their strength, and as such, he gladly allowed me to join his forces. Wait, is this guy here who has his back turned that I've never recognized before? Is this the King of Dragons? And then he turns into Wu. We went searching for a new world, for the sake of building up our new army. And then Jin says, Earth? That is correct. To the humans, the appearance of the monarchs must have seemed very unprecedented. Their annihilation was inevitable. Cities going up in a sea of flames. I've seen this scenery before. Oh wait, this is Jin saying this. City going up in a sea of flames. I've seen this scenery before. The Demon Castle. Is this what will happen in the future? And then Ashbourne's changed into Choi Jong-in. No, this is a record of the past. And then Jin says, what do you mean? And then Ashbourne turns into Bayek saying, if the monarch's reason of existence is destruction, then the reason for the existence of the rulers was to maintain this world, where the absolute being was no longer. The rulers belatedly detected the movements of the sovereigns and set their armies. And everything had come to an end. Naturally, the rulers grew angry at the fact that the army of the Chaos world they failed to eradicate managed to bring destruction upon another world. In order to correct this, they used their tool containing the power of the absolute being, which they had prohibited themselves from using. The tool of God. The Cup of Reincarnation. It was an incredible tool that could turn back time by 10 years. The rulers used everything they had in order to save this world, but the current Earth was way too weak to fight against the monarchs. And the Earth, where no magical energy resided, could not endure the mass-scale battles. Wait, what are they saying? Are they saying that Earth as we know it now in this story, it didn't have magic in it, so they use this cup to fill it with magical energy? Let me continue reading. Whether the monarchs or the rulers won the battle, the impact brought upon this planet would remain the same. Thus, the rulers made a drastic decision. If they can't save everyone, they wanted to make sure that at least some would survive, so those people could continue on in this world. And then Jin says, so that's how hunters were created. And he shifted himself to Byung-hung again, Byung-gu, Andre's friend Bayek's friend from way back, saying they were making human beings capable of surviving the collision between. I messed that up. They were making human beings capable of surviving the collision between the two forces. The rulers wanted the humans to survive, no matter what they had to do. And then Jin is thinking, those that could survive in the changed world, if they realized the fact that, with the exception of the small number of people who are hunters, everyone must die, could society really operate normally? The Demon King is a fragment of memories left behind by the Shadow Monarch. And then Jin continues. So, this world has already gone through countless annihilations. Almost sounds like the Matrix when you think about it. They've gone through countless annihilations as well. Well, I think it was only like 7. But still, the fact that the Earth itself has been razed to the ground countless times, with the rulers trying their best to eradicate one side and the monarchs trying to eradicate the other. But Jin continues saying, so this world has already gone through countless annihilations. And then Ashbourne is taking the form of the one that works with, I believe it's Bayek's group or one of the Hunters Association, posing as a mage, saying, indeed, although the higher beings are not able to go against the flow of time, they are able to perceive the change in the flows of time created by the cup of reincarnation. While the rulers tried to fix their mistakes several times, the sovereigns also began modifying their plan continuously, until the tool of God couldn't be used anymore. And then Jin says, I know my French is bad. I need to work on it. I know. I know just from me using it. So I need to work on that accent a little bit more. My German's better, but I like to switch it up a little bit. But Jin says, hold up. Are you telling me that there's a limit to the cup of reincarnation? And then Ashbourne turned into the girl that was, hanging out with him and Jinho, when they were going through all those different raids. The one that likes to keep her hoodie up with the hat on. She says, there's no such thing as infinite power. Just like how the absolute being who was capable of creating worlds was eliminated by his own creations, there is a limit to every power. And Jin says, so how were the creations able to kill their creator? It's no different to humans dying from machines they had created. We were created to fight, and our powers were more than enough to bring down our own creator. Then, the sovereigns utilized the ruler's method to create a plan of their own. Similar to how rulers lent power to humans so they can kill magical beasts, thus strengthening the world, sovereigns would also borrow a human's body to descend upon the world. Okay, so the one that looks like Legia, that dude looks like Gold Roger. Like, seriously. He has some seriously massive Gold Roger vibes. Similar to how rulers lent power to humans so they can kill magical beasts, thus strengthening the world, sovereigns would also borrow a human's body to descend onto the world and bring their armies far earlier than the expectations of the rulers. So we see all these different types of rulers, all these different types of sovereigns who've taken on different bodies. Like I recognize the Frost Monarch there, Legia, the Beast Monarch, and Kresha right there, inhabiting the body of a woman who's into, capturing and preserving insects. So they're all in some shape or fashion in the body of someone that pretty much embodies them. Pretty much. But he continues with Ashbourne taking the form of China's 7th star. I forget his name, Liu something, saying they planned to use magical energy that was spread around the world by the rulers to turn the entirety of Earth into one large trap. And Jin says, so that they could devour the ruler's army coming to aid humanity in one go. Precisely. For a sovereign who possesses incredible power, to cross over into this world, they need a host body who is able to handle their power. But because me and the Monarch of Destruction possess powers too great, We could not find humans who are suitable to be our hosts. At that time, one of the most capable mages working under a king came to me with a proposal. They were willing to find me a suitable human. That mage, called the Architect, asserted that they would give me assistance, but only for an imperishable body in return. But, unfortunately, no living thing could become a vessel to contain death. The Architect, with the system he had designed, searched high and low for one talented in sensing magical power, one with prodigal physical power, one with superiority, one with great mentality. The Architect searched for a human whose strength would meet my powers. The search was not an easy one. But in the midst of his scavenging, he found someone who bested his system, someone who rewrote the rules of his game and exceeded his expectations. Yo, it's Jin. You, who was always weak, always closest to death, and yet evaded death again and again. I watched you. And even in the opposition of the Architect, I picked you. I shall say it once more. I am the record of your struggles, the evidence of your resistance, and the reward of your pain. And Jin and Ashbourne has taken the form of Jin's dad, as Jin's eyes open wide because he remembers his dad hugging him when they were younger. Wow. And then Jin says, even though I have exceeded the Architect's expectations, I must not have been enough to be able to handle your power. And then Ashbourne continues, the Architect used objects of human skill and human preference to adjust to my strength. Games and recreation. By using those to fuel your amusement, the Architect's system, which used my power, transformed your body level by level to match mine. Wow, so that's why Jin's been that's why Jin no longer looks the same as he did when he started. He's basically been groomed to become the vessel of Ashbourne. Not just in mind, but in body. Every inch of him. And Jin says, so there was a reason why the system had an analogous appearance to a game, especially with the player aspects of it. But you betrayed the Architect. Thinking back to when the Architect was saying, "Sure, Shadow Monarch, how could you? Do you really believe that the other monarchs will sit by and watch?" Why? And then he changes into the form of a woman. I can't recognize her. I forget. I don't know if I recognize this woman or not. And Ashbourne doesn't say anything. And then he changes into Jin-Oh, saying, the ruler's apology, the betrayal of the monarchs. I pondered on which side I should stand on. I made a decision, and I wanted it to be that way. The time I spent with you was so blissful. Perhaps I did not want to lose you. I became you. You became me. No matter who becomes the owner of this body, it will not be strange, for we are already one. And then with the end of this conversation, I'm guessing, he changes into how Jin is now. And then Ashbourne continues saying, using the body of Jin, saying, therefore, I will offer you a choice. You could stay in this domain of death and enjoy the eternal dreams you've created for yourself. You could choose to rest. If that is not your choice, you will be sent to reality once more. You will have to fight your adversaries. And here it shows the rest of the remaining monarchs and a whole bunch of monsters with, I'm guessing, the King of Destruction himself, the King of the Dragons in the back with massive wings, and he looks just flat out awesome, I'm going to be honest with you. If that is not your choice, you will be sent to reality once more. You will have to fight your adversaries. And then Jin says, you said you had made your decision, but you do not stand with the leaders. So why did you escape to the other world with the monarchs, even though your will to fight the rulers had long dissipated? And then, taking the form of Wu, Ashbourne says, It was because that place did not offer a place for me. And then Jin says, my answer is the same. This is not a place where I should be. And then he changes into Gogun He, where we only see the bottom half of his mouth, but Ashbourne smiles. Oh, and then we get a full shot of Ashbourne taking the form of Gogun He. The light is on his face, and he's just smiling a big old smile. How dare you make me feel emotions? And then Jin says, is this the last time I will be seeing you? And then Ashbourne, in the form of Gogun He, says, I will return to rest, but you, the Shadow Monarch, will live an imperishable life. Thus the crossing of our paths is quite unlikely. With death, your power has become absolute. The way to go back is... And then Jin says, I know. Because I am you. And then as this conversation ends, they're all in a big field of flowers and a massive sunset, and Ashbourne has assumed his original form as the Shadow Monarch as they both stand in front of one another. And Jin closes his eyes as the flowers envelop him. And then we just see the words, arise. Ooh, this was a good chapter. Not gonna lie, I enjoyed this one. We got a lot more history about things that were going on. We got a lot more... Okay, let me just pull up chat. Kohagen, Hugh, Spider-Man, Shonen Sensei. Finally get to catch the solo leveling stream. Yeah, man, we got so much exposition, so much information given, like plans of the rulers. Plans on the rulers and how the world itself has been annihilated countless times, and how they use this tool of God, basically. Hold on. Let me find the name of this tool. The tool of God, basically. Where is it? Where is it? Yes, the Cup of Reincarnation. The tool of God, the Cup of Reincarnation. They use this countless times that could turn back time by 10 years. So they kept using this to go back 10 years in order to mess with things. So every time they kept going back in time, the power of the Cup of Reincarnation kept getting weaker and weaker to the point where it barely had any power anymore. And each time they kept going back in time, they kept coming up with plans to fight the sovereigns. While in the same process, use everything they had in order to save this world, but the current Earth was way too weak to fight against the monarchs, and the Earth, where no magical energy resided, could not endure the mass-scale battles. Whether the monarchs or the rulers won the battle, the impact brought upon this planet would remain the same. Thus, the rulers made a drastic decision. If they can't save everyone, they wanted to make sure at least some would survive so those people could continue on in this world. That is how hunters were created. Going through this entire battle, the way it was, the last panel made me happy. Oh, it made me happy as well, but seeing Gogun He again, and just with a big old smile on his face, even though Ashbourne was assuming his form, that was beautiful as well. I love Gogun He. I really do. He's a cool dude. And they explain why he was chosen. Like, seriously, we learn why out of everyone in the world who had magical powers that the rulers kept trying to instill in everyone in order to ensure that the hunters survive this fight. It's not that they wanted to save they wanted to save the entire world, but kept finding out that humanity was not strong enough to survive. So they used the Cup of Reincarnation to tweak things a little and start to give people powers, and that's how hunters were born. So if they cannot save the world, and they can't save all of humanity, they at least want a certain group of humans to be able to survive and begin anew. Thus, hunters who are far stronger than normal human beings have what it takes to survive the raising of the entire world, and they can rebuild things. So when you think about it, hunters were specifically created to survive the end of the world. Anyone who's not a hunter is just basically out of luck. So anyone that is not like Jin, is not like Bayek, is not like Thomas Andre, or basically any hunter in the world, they will not survive the upcoming battle. It's the hunters who were created to survive and to fight. Everyone else, I mean, they are considered losses when you think about it. I want to know what king the architect was working for. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the King of Dragons, but we'll have to find out in the next chapter. This was a beautiful chapter. This was a 9 out of 10 chapter. Although I could put it a 10 out of 10 because we got useful info as well. Hey, Destruct, what's going on? Nick J, Sora, Danny, Moondragon. Let me acknowledge everyone who shows up here. It was really... And here's the thing. Not every single chapter needs to be filled with nothing but action. Because I actually like explanations like this. We find out that Jin was chosen because no matter how many times he came close to death, he was never fully... He wouldn't fully die. Like, every time he would get close to death, he would just have like a slim chance of survival. And that was enough to sway Ashbourne to choose him to be his new vessel. Jin was chosen to be the vessel of the most powerful of the brilliant lights. The most bruh. In my last reaction, I had originally thought that I had thought that I was being incorrect when I thought that Ashbourne was the most powerful of every single person. Every single one of the brilliant lights that was up there. Anyone that was part of the beings that would become known as rulers, as that was a name they would take for themselves. I just thought that, no, there's no way that he's the most powerful of them. He's probably just the most loyal, and then he became the most powerful monarch. No! When Ashbourne joined with the other monarchs to fight the rulers, and then Baron and the Beast Monarch tried to betray him, Ashbourne pretty much lost almost all of his army, but he was able to subdue Baron and absorb him into himself and make Baron's strength his own. But when the rulers come down, they all kneel around Ashbourne and call him the greatest of the most brilliant lights. So Ashbourne, before he turned into the Shadow Monarch, was literally second only to the absolute being himself. Out of in terms of power, mind you, out of every single one of them. Not only was he the most loyal to the absolute being before the absolute being's demise, but he was also the greatest out of every single one of them. And all these events that happened with him nearly losing his power, him trying to find a vessel to contain his power, because as he says, the power of himself and the King of Dragons is so great that they couldn't just drop into a regular human body like the other monarchs could. Like, every other monarch was able to find a human body to contain their own power. But Ashbourne and the King of Dragons wasn't able to find a human body because they simply had too much power. So they had to work on, I guess you could call it grooming, a human to get stronger in order to contain their power. Like All Might did for Midoriya when he had to train in order to learn how to use All for One, because if he just used All for One in an untrained body, his body just would have plumb exploded. I would imagine the same thing would have happened to Jin if he wasn't careful. Too much power in that body, and his body wouldn't have been able to contain it, and... So, we find out that the architect worked with the Shadow Monarch to find a human amidst everyone in the entire world that could serve as a worthy vessel to contain his power so that Ashbourne could continue his fight. And while this was going on, man, that's a big eyelash that was poking me in the eye. While this is going on, they kept looking for humans and they couldn't find any until Ashbourne noticed and was watching Jin, back when he was a rank E hunter. And though the architect protested to Ashbourne choosing Jin, Ashbourne chose Jin because of how because as Justine Nicole said, Jin was the one Ashbourne chose because out of every single human on Earth, he was closer to death than anyone. He would get so close to death and yet still survive. That's the thing about Jin. Despite being regarded as the weakest of all hunters in the entire world, he still survived despite every single odd that was set against him. So Ashbourne chose him to be his vessel. And the architect, despite protesting to this, rewrote the system just so it can be like a video game. And not only did it change Jin in terms of his strength and power, but it also changed him physically. It changed Jin physically so his body could be prepared to take on the power of Ashbourne himself. That's why Jin grew taller. That's why he got more muscular. That's why he got more handsome. That's why everything physical that happened to Jin was all for the purpose of him being able to hold Ashbourne's strength. That's something. Every single time Jin leveled up, it was all for the sake of him being able to contain more and more of Ashbourne's power. Every fight he's ever been in has pretty much worked in his favor of making him stronger than anything. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything important with these chapters. At that, okay, so here we have here what he's, okay, so this is what it says. For a sovereign who possesses incredible power to cross over into this world, they need a host body who is able to handle their power. But because me and the Monarch of Destruction possess powers too great, we could not find humans who are suitable to be our hosts. Ashbourne and the Monarch of Destruction's power was just so great that they couldn't find a human to contain them. Everyone else, like the Beast Monarch and the Frost Monarch, their power does not even come close to the power of Ashbourne and the Monarch of Destruction because they found host bodies. Ashbourne and the Destruction Monarch's power is too great that they can't find anyone to contain them. Your boy need to chill. Ashbourne needs to chill. It's really good when you think about it. This is basically a checkpoint restart. Pretty much. And then he continues saying, at that time, one of the most capable mages working under a king came to me with a proposal. They were willing to find me a suitable human. So the architect came up with the idea to aid him in finding a suitable human. The only thing was he wanted a body that wouldn't die in return. And that's why the architect was basically the giant winged statue that was holding the edicts in the double dungeon. He had that body in return, one that couldn't physically die. Even solo leveling has a checkpoint system, unlike some games I won't mention. I won't mention them either, and I'm glad I removed them yesterday. They're not going back on my hard drive, Shonen. They are not. But unfortunately, no living thing could become a vessel to contain death. The architect, with the system he had designed, searched high and low for one talented in sensing magic power, one with prodigal physical power, one with superiority, one with great mentality. Here, the architect was looking for someone who already had high stats. Already looking for someone that already had like a whole bunch of skills, high-level skills necessary in order to be considered to be a vessel for Ashbourne. The architect searched for a human whose strength would meet my powers. The architect was looking for a human whose powers were already able to match Ashbourne's, already from the jump. Not build up to it, but find one that already had that type of power going forward. The search was not an easy one, but in the midst of his scavenging, he found someone who bested his system, someone who rewrote the rules of his game and exceeded his expectations. You, who was always weak, always closest to death, and yet evaded death again and again, I watched you. Every fights he'd been in, slashed by goblins, facing off against so many different monsters and whatever. Even in the opposition of the architect, I picked you. I shall say it once more. I am the record of your struggles, the evidence of your resistance, and the reward of your pain. The architect used objects of human skill and human preference to adjust to my strength. Games and recreation. My question is, how did Legia was able to find a vessel if he was already captured by the rulers? See, my thing with Legia is, due to them talking about how many times they reset the world, I wouldn't be surprised if Legia found a vessel beforehand, and then here's the thing, they talk about the Cup of Reincarnation, which allowed the rulers to set time back 10 years. So, what if it stands to believe that Legia had assumed a human form before, but since the rulers are able to rewind time back 10 years, they probably learned that he was able to make a vessel and captured him before he could do it in one of their rewinds. That would explain why it shows Legia in a human form, but we also see him bound and chained in the present day. Because in one particular timeline, before the rulers rewound it, he had a vessel. But the rulers came back, learned of it, rewound time, and captured him and bound him up before he could make a vessel. So that's why I believe that we see Legia with a human form. He had it before the rulers used the Cup of Reincarnation to go back and undo that progress. Ashbourne was like, bro, you can't find someone like me. Really? That's exactly what it was. Games and recreation. By using those to fuel your amusement, the architect system, which used my power, transformed your body level by level to match mine. So every time... I got hiccups now. And that's how you get rid of hiccups. Every time Jin leveled up, little by little, his body started to become more and more like Ashbourne's. Because the entire system itself was fueled and used the power of Ashbourne in order for it to continue. Ashbourne is dope in both in name and game, pretty much. Ashbourne got that drip and the skills to match it. So there was a reason why the system had an analogous appearance to a game, especially with the player aspects of it. But you betrayed the architect. And then, while Jin is asking why, he says the ruler's apology, the betrayal of the monarchs. I pondered on which side I should stand on, thinking about the rulers apologizing for everything. When the rulers came down, they all kneeled around Ashbourne and asked for forgiveness. They just said, and with their reasoning being, we just want to end this war, please forgive us. They weren't even there to fight, they just knelt around the strongest of them all and said, please forgive us. The ruler's apology, the betrayal of the monarchs, Baron and the Beast Monarch. I pondered on which side I should stand on. I made a decision, and I wanted it to be that way. The time I spent with you was so blissful, perhaps I did not want to lose you. I became you, you became me. No matter who becomes the owner of this body, it will not be strange, for we are already one. So he's basically saying that no matter what happens, Ashbourne is Jin, Jin is Ashbourne, and neither are separate. That's how far things have progressed with Jin right now. Therefore, I will offer you a choice. You could stay in this domain of death, and enjoy the eternal dreams you've created for yourself. You could choose to rest At the start, Jin's shadows were blue, but slowly they turned purple. Exactly. As Jin leveled up, his once blue soldiers started to turn purple, thus matching that of Ashbourne, letting us know that Jin was growing closer and closer to his own power. If that is not your choice, you will be sent to reality once more. You will have to fight your adversaries. And it shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 monarchs remaining, because he's already taken out Legia and he's already taken out Gayresha. With the Frost Monarch being one that he's especially gunning for. But it also shows, I'm gonna guess, the Monarch of Destruction in the back. And then we have one Monarch there. We have the one that was there to take out Christopher Reed. We have the Frost Monarch here, and we have the Beast Monarch. We'll find out who the other ones are in due time. With Jin saying, so you said you made your decision, but you did not stand with the leaders. So why did you escape to the other world with the monarchs, even though your will to fight the rulers had long dissipated? It was because that place did not offer a place for me. My answer is the same, says Jin. This is not a place where I should be. And then it shows Gogun He just smiling in the rays of the sun. With Jin saying, is this the last time I'll be seeing you? With Gogunborn saying, I will return to rest, but you, the Shadow Monarch, will live an imperishable life. Thus the crossing of our paths is quite unlikely. With death, your power has become absolute. The way to go back is... And then he just says, I know. I become because I am you. And in saying this, it basically means that Jin cannot die. With death, your power has become absolute. The way to go back is, I know. And then the last thing we see from this chapter is him saying, arise. So Jin can raise himself. That's what that means. The way to go back is, with death, your power is absolute. Jin is now the embodiment of death. He has his power over death is absolute. So that means all he has to say is he can bring himself back. Arise. That's the power Jin has right now. And woe be to the Beast Monarch and the Frost Monarch when he comes back. All in all, this was a hype chapter. So he won't level up anymore because he's on the same level as Ashbourne. I don't know if he'll reach a limit. I don't know. Who knows? The system might continue and let him get stronger, or he might in fact stop leveling and he's at the pinnacle of his power and he's just at the stage where he needs to be in order to just fight all of his foes. We're just gonna have to see in the next chapter. But all in all, this was a really good chapter. Sorry to take up too much of your time, everyone. I know this was a bit long, but I wanted to be thorough. Sorry for the mishaps here and there, but overall, this was a fantastic chapter, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I don't have anything else to say about this chapter, except that I loved it. So Jin is the new Ashbourne, and once again, he survived death. It just shows you that from the very beginning, Jin was the perfect candidate for Ashbourne's power. Even in the midst of him getting gored through by the Beast Monarch and dying, he has now reached the point where his power is absolute now, and now he can just bring himself back. Jin is so overpowered, and I love it. But that's all I got, ladies and gentlemen. If I missed anything important in this chapter, please be sure to let me know in the comments down below. But I do hope you all enjoyed. Jin's life is going to be boring as he's going to live forever, I guess. Sucks to be him right now. I mean, eternal life and immortality can be a very finicky thing, especially if no one else that you care about around you has immortality as well. I mean, think about how Superman has to feel. At some point, he's going to outlive everyone on Earth that isn't, superhuman like him. So that can be both a gift and a curse, but we're just going to have to see how he deals with it, or if the story deals with it at any point. But that's all I got, ladies and gentlemen. Let me go ahead and give you my closing remarks. Thank you for the massive support for this channel that you have shown me to this channel. Like, since my last reaction to Solo Leveling. It's just more and more people have been coming to the channel, and I am just all the more grateful for it. Wow, my lips are super jacked. I didn't even notice. I am sorry. Oh my goodness, I need some chapstick. Good lord, that was foul. No, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, that distracted me. But I really do hope you enjoyed my reactions for Solo Leveling, and I really do hope that I've been able to entertain you all this while. I've been enjoying this entire series, and I find nothing but joy whenever I get up in front of this camera, turn on this mic, do all these voices, and just have all around fun doing this. I am incredibly grateful to be able to do this for all of you. This may not seem like a big deal to some of y'all, but to me, it means everything because this is me using my talents, not just for myself, but for you. I love this. So I thank you for all of the support that you have shown me on this channel in any way that you see fit, really. It just means the world to me. And I am humbled by the success that this channel has seen thanks to people like you. So with that being said, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed what you saw here today, then consider subscribing because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day. And once again, as always, later, peoples.